I was recently asked whether I would do a day in the life of caring for my pets. So the only pets I'm not really going to show in this video are my dogs and my guinea pig. So they're kind of like the daytime pets. Most of my other pets are mainly in the evening, but it is the morning now, so I figured we'd start things off by showing you that the lights automatically come on over here with Lyra and Drogo, and you can just see up there, Drogo is basking right now. And down here in Timothy's tank, this is a biolb earth. If you remember a while ago, I set it up. Recently took out a big plant here to help with visibility, because I noticed he started to sort of stretch a little. So normally this whole plant comes over here, but it was getting burnt on the lights because the plant is way too tall for this tank. And usually Bertie would be at the front on this plant, but it's disappeared. The only things I have to do is put on this light for the jumping spiders, because unfortunately that doesn't work on a timer. You have to manually put it on and open the blind in here. Now I will admit, looking after these reptiles doesn't take too much of my time in the day, pretty much leave them. But today I will be feeding them, cleaning out some poop, and getting Liz, my ant colony, my queen ant, out of the loft after hibernation. So that's why I figured I'd film today, because there's generally a bit more going on than usual.
Later.
And just like that, it is 5 PM, it's dark in here. The only thing still left on is a spider light. So daytime with the pets in here, pretty simple. Don't really need my input other than this light and the blind. I think maybe I'll see Bertie is hanging out. I did pop up to the attic to get Liz from hibernation and her colony. It didn't go as I planned, and I have done a separate video on what happened there, so if it's already up, I will leave a link here. So it's a bit later on, you can see Lyra's tail here. I'm just about to mist her and Drogo down. I swear I'm terrible at vlogging because I forgot to do this earlier. So usually what I do is, at the moment we're still technically in winter, so she doesn't get misted down as often, and what I'll sometimes do is leave little bottle lids of water, because they will drink from standing water. However, in summer it's definitely a morning evening thing, making sure they're hydrated. But with crested geckos and chahowas, you don't want it to be soaked all the time like you would a frog. So let's just mist these down. I also realised I already went ahead and sorted out their water, so I am terrible at vlogging, but if you didn't know, I will tip out their water and put in fresh each day, and then once a week I give the water bowls a good clean, because they tend to get algae in them. I think this is just because I use so many lights. It's bound to happen. It's an area that's always wet because it holds water. If you do have any tips on getting rid of that, let me know. I know some people will say use a certain coin for the copper, but I believe that's only coins before a certain year, and it's all a little bit complicated. But for now, hi Minnie, we're gonna feed the geckos. Now the gecko food is kept in my guinea pig's room, which is just along the hallway, and as you can see we have our mealworms, morrowworms and beetles. If you saw me set up that video, they're doing really well. I did buy a few more mealworms, but they're really taken off. I certainly need to separate them out, but we're not short of mealworms. So we're gonna take this in to the geckos. Now as I feed the geckos, I am going to just do a bit of a voiceover, because whenever my camera gets too close to the tanks when I'm feeding them, there's loads of interference with the microphone. I don't know if that's just because of all the tech I use with the geckos, but I figured I'd do a voiceover here. So obviously we are feeding them mealworms today. They don't get mealworms too often actually, even though I do breed them. I wouldn't recommend feeding mealworms every feed. I think they are great as part of a varied diet, so I pretty much cycle between different insects and try to offer something different each time, and reserve morio worms or waxworms as treats so that they only get a few of now and again. But today's mealworms, they don't get them often, so hopefully they enjoy them. I remember there used to be this weird conspiracy theory back in the day, and I think it was surrounding bearded dragons more than anything. Like, people would go to expos with like these things about bearded dragons becoming impacted by mealworms because of the chitin in their exoskeleton or something like that. It is safe to feed your geckos mealworms, and I've known people online at least to feed their geckos just mealworms most of their life, which, as I said, I wouldn't recommend, but I think geckos can become, or any reptile can become impacted by their food if the temperature's not correct, they're not hydrated enough, if they're sick. So if you have an animal that's constantly getting impacted by its own food, then there's probably something wrong with its health or your setup. Mealworms are definitely one of those feeder insects that I would prefer to hand feed, or at least place one insect in front of the gecko at a time, just because my geckos will not eat out of bowls, and if you just leave mealworms in there, they are going to burrow. So I need to make sure the geckos are out when I'm feeding them, and Gizmo was right behind her plants. I could see her, but I couldn't really put a mealworm down because I knew that it would get away. And eventually she came out for a mealworm. Hi, Diego. Then we get to handling. So I didn't really know how to film this because I find it kind of weird setting up a camera just to sit in front of it to just handle my gecko when that's kind of just a me and the gecko time, or me and one of my bugs time. So I will feature some of the pets I have in this room here, but yeah, generally in the evening that's when I interact with them the most. Usually I will handle my geckos either before feeding them or like an hour or so after. You don't really want to handle them straight after feeding as they can regurgitate their food. However, if you have to pick them up, that's not too bad. Just if you are planning on handling them, maybe handle them before you feed them. But yeah, I hope you enjoy this sort of little insight into the life of me and my pets. I have to admit, it's pretty simple, and that might just be because I've been used to owning geckos more than half my life, and even with the introduction of my jumping spiders and praying mantis, that hasn't really added much stress to the day. I do often wonder what it'd be like if I had a diurnal species, just because for so long I've been used to animals that prefer to be interacted with in the evening time. That would be quite interesting, but for now, as I said, I will leave them during the day. Obviously I can check up on them, but they're usually asleep, and everything happens in the evening. Anyway, thank you for watching, guys, and goodbye.